Yeah, hello everyone, Irvin Reacts here and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be reacting to the last episode of extra credits slash histories uh, sorry, I'm having trouble speaking today. The last episode of extra credits history of coffee series, which is only 2 parts. Anyway, let's get started, shall we?
1683.
Never mind, it's auto-generated. Why do I even bother?
Vienna. After 2 grueling months, the siege of Vienna is over. The Ottoman army is fleeing back to Constantinople, and the victorious coalition is pillaging their abandoned camp. And Jerzy Franciszek Kolczyski was key to this victory. A Polish diplomat and spy, he'd managed to slip out of the city to get help. As a reward, he can pick anything from the spoils he wishes. But instead of gold or jewels, he picks several cartloads of coffee beans and starts the first coffee house in Vienna. At least that's the legend. An Armenian Christian actually opened the first one in 1685, and Kolczyski's own coffee house, the Blue Bottle, followed it shortly after. But while not the first Viennese cafe, the Blue Bottle was definitely the most innovative, because to combat coffee's bitter taste, Jerzy Kolczyski served his coffee with milk.
Good for Kurchi. Never mind, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his name. I forgot how to say it. Good for that guy. Normally, like nowadays, people use creamer, right? I bet you use creamer in your tea or coffee. Me, sometimes, but for the most part, I prefer to use milk rather than creamer. It's healthier. But if there's no milk, then I go with the creamer. I also like to take coffee black sometimes, or sometimes with sugar only and no milk or cream. It tastes good that way.
Thanks so much to humankind for helping us keep this history brewing. Last episode, we talked about how coffee houses filtered into Europe, how they fostered conversation and the development of business. But we'll let that steep for a minute and discuss the pressing matter that we're sure you're frothing at the mouth to know. What kind of coffee did they serve? Well, if you traveled back in time and walked into the Grecian or Jonathan's and paid a penny for a dish of coffee, what would it taste like? Gah, pretty dang gross, actually. In fact, you might not even recognize it as coffee. First off, the beans would have been stale, having been roasted at their origin and then transported in non-airtight containers on leaky ships. It was also prepared.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I read the book on the history of Starbucks and the reason why they became like the most famous cafe brand in the world is because of their airtight coffee beans, not to mention their coffee culture. Yep. So yeah.
In Turkish style, with the beans boiled along with the water, which is fine if you like that. But due to European laws that taxed the sale of liquids by the barrel, it had to be pre-brewed, left to sit, and then reheated before serving. The taste, however, wasn't really the point. Coffee was quite literally consumed as a drug, and the first coffee houses in London were well aware of this. In fact, they circulated handbills that described coffee as medicine.
The grain or berry called coffee growth upon little trees only in the I can't read that. The ink has been, deteriorated. It is brought from tents and drunk generally throughout all the grand Saint Hor's dominions. You know what? I'm not going to make you irritated by reading all of this very long and hard to read text. So once I'm done with this video, I'm going to rewatch it and read it myself.
That cured any number of complaints, while also pointing out that a businessman needing to work late into the night could use it to revive themselves. People, in other words, drank it for the buzz, both of the drug itself and the atmosphere of the coffee house.
Yeah, I also, if I remember correctly, I also read once that coffee, back then was uh, used as something to sober up with when you're drunk. Uh, drunk, like one person goes to the tavern, gets drunk, then they go to the coffee shop next door or across the street to sober up, then they go back to the tavern. At least that's what I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but that caffeine had an incredible effect. Because before coffee, the primary drink at all times of the day was alcohol. Tavern records from England and France show individuals drinking incredible amounts per day. And English and Dutch sailors were even given a gallon of beer per day, though granted that beer was only 1% alcohol, as a daily ration. Often you'll hear that this mass switch from alcohol to caffeine.
Yup, the beer back then isn't like the strong beer we know today. It was quite weak, and if you take a look at other countries' histories, like if you were to take a look at ancient Egypt, they also had beer, but it wasn't like a liquid you could drink. It was more like a thick soup that is eaten from thick soup that could even be eaten or drunk as a meal. So yeah. It's best to look at things from history's point of view rather than a modern person's point of view.
As Europe's most common drug, a depressant to a stimulant, created the Enlightenment and the Age of Revolution. But that's kind of too simplistic. Habitual heavy drinking continued through the next several centuries, and in fact a trip to the coffee house was often done to sober up after a long night in order to overindulge again. But as drunkenness became...
Oh, so I was right. Drunk people would go to coffee houses to sober up to drink again. Nice. Good for me.
Became increasingly frowned upon in the 17th and 18th centuries, coffee became even more favorable as a tool for a more sober, punctual, and industrious society. Caffeine, however, did have an effect on the increasingly...
Oh wait, sorry, I wanted to apologize for something. Never mind, I forgot what I was gonna say.
The addicted population of Europe. English diarist and public servant Samuel Pepys claims he drank 25 cups a day. And French philosopher and novelist...
Well, wait, 25? Oh, okay, that's a bit excessive. For me, I love tea, and I could drink about 9 cups a day. 9 cups a day. But I could never do anything over 10 cups of tea. No. No. I can only drink like 9 to 10 cups of tea a day.
Novelist Voltaire supposedly drank 50. German composer Johann Sebastian Bach.
50 cups of coffee a day? Gee, wonder if that man had any true sleep.
Even wrote The Coffee Cantata, a short comedic opera about a father trying to break his daughter's caffeine addiction, in which she sings a love song to the drink, calling it more delicious than 1,000 kisses, and crooning that she must have her coffee.
I would love to see that play. I would love to see it.
Honestly, hard same. So yeah, it's fair to say that people liked getting their fix, and it made them more productive. But the social chemistry of the coffee house also made it indispensable in the developing Enlightenment as a public forum for conversation, literature, and politics. In fact, many even began publishing daily or weekly journals to inform about recent events and intellectual arguments in order to keep everyone informed and raise the quality of the conversations. Some of which, like the Tatler and Spectator, even became papers and magazines later on. And coffee houses also broke the church, government, and university monopoly on knowledge, as these conversations moved into the public sphere. And before long, they got nicknamed penny universities, due to the ability to pay a penny for a cup of coffee and sit listening to the greatest minds of the age. And as we mentioned in the last episode, revolutionary politics often brewed along with the coffee. For instance, in 1675, King Charles II tried to shut down the coffee houses in London because the patrons were criticizing him. A decision so unpopular, he reversed it immediately. So, while coffee didn't create the Enlightenment, it definitely helped it along. But there was an economic problem: supply. See, this
patong-patong na discounts. Add to cart na!
This is beef in all its majesty. The only flame-grilled burger, Burger King Whopper.
This new European
Oh yeah, I forgot. Cause coffee is generally from Africa and the Middle East, so that's their only source of coffee.
drug habit had a single supplier, the Yemeni port of Mocha. In fact, all coffee drunk in Europe came via the Middle East or the Ottomans, meaning there was money to be made for any European country who could establish a new supply, which admittedly was hard to come by, because the sultans, understanding that they'd cornered the market, passed laws saying that beans must be roasted before shipment, meaning they could never be planted. So enterprising merchants looked for a way around. The Dutch East India Company were the first to break the monopoly, when one of their agents managed to smuggle a load of beans out of Yemen strapped to his body. The climate in Amsterdam wasn't right, however, and in 1696, the East India Company decided to try planting a crop in a warmer place, their new colony on the island of Java. The crop took off, and by the beginning of the 1700s, Java coffee was supplying most of Europe, knocking the Arabica coffee from Yemen out of the European market. Others took note. In
Yup, a lot of the time, many people talk about the British Empire, but they don't really talk about the other colonial powers. Before the British even came to the American East Coast, the Dutch were there too. And even before they colonized India, the Dutch were there first. So yeah, everything that the British ever did, just know that the Dutch did it first.
1714, a French naval officer took a plant from the Royal Botanical Gardens in Paris, a diplomatic gift from the Netherlands, and took it to Martinique. According to his likely exaggerated account, the plant survived a storm, a pirate attack, and even a Dutch spy trying to kidnap it. From Martinique, the plant went all over the French Caribbean, until the Portuguese then stole it from the French when one of their agents supposedly flirted with a French colonial governor's wife until she gave him a bouquet with the beans hidden in the bottom, starting the Brazilian coffee industry. But if you're starting to sense a dark side behind these myths, you're not wrong. Europe's caffeine addiction not only drove the establishment of coffee plantations around
Most of Europe's coffee and other crops supplied to them from the Caribbean, and not just the Caribbean itself, but also from other colonies around the world, would mostly be fueled and supplied by slave labor. So yeah, even chocolate. Not many people would think that such a sweet and delicious thing such as chocolate could ever have a dark side to it. Get it? Dark chocolate? Yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, when chocolate first came to be, it was mostly supplied by slave labor. So yeah, there's nothing ever pure in this world.
the world. It also required massive use of African slave labor to produce. In fact, the exploitation of coffee production helped lead to the Haitian Revolution and contributed to Brazil deforesting its coast and keeping slavery until 1888. Sadly, this is the legacy that in some ways continues to this day, where coffee growers and laborers often face poverty.
Yup, even today, modern workers such as plantation workers, they may not be slaves, but they're still treated harshly. Now, don't get me wrong. They still get paid and they still get like time off, but very, very little. The point you could call it modern slavery. Or it's technically slavery, but not. It's more like forced hard labor, where they have no choice, and their pay and time off is very little.
And exploitation, leading to the fair trade and single origin movements. And the world only got thirstier for the bean-based rocket fuel. Because while Britain, previously the world's largest coffee-drinking nation, switched to tea, which was cheaper and easier to drink in the home, a new addict—
Yep, like I said in the last video,
had entered the fray: the United States. The American coffee habit began with the Revolution, when disputes over taxes on tea made switching to coffee a patriotic gesture. And despite its name, the Green Dragon Tavern, headquarters of the Sons of Liberty, was actually a combination pub coffee house. But it was the Civil War that really kickstarted America's addiction. The Union Army considered coffee a staple good and issued soldiers a daily ration. And many drank the equivalent of 10 cups a day, often brewing it out of water so dirty even the horses wouldn't drink from it. The Confederates, by contrast, had their caffeine supply pinched off by the Union blockade and had to make do with unappetizing substitutes, brewed from roots, leaves, and ground peanuts.
Yep, during the Civil War, whenever there wasn't a fight going on, there are times when both Union and what's the other side called? Oh yes, Confederate soldiers would sometimes meet in secret and trade things in coffee, food, etc.
And funny thing, if you get hundreds of thousands of soldiers addicted to coffee, it turns out that the demand explodes once the government isn't giving them their daily grind. After the war, and during westward expansion, coffee quickly became part of American life. So much so that a whole industry developed to supply the need. These branded coffee companies, like Folgers, would roast huge quantities of beans in the East and ship them west in airtight sealed cans, pre-ground and ready for consumption in the home, meaning it finally tasted fresh and good. Then, Italian coffee culture made the next great leap after World War II, introducing the espresso, which I mispronounce espresso all the time. A small concentrated cup.
I don't really blame you, Matt. I sometimes say certain words the wrong way as well.
Made under pressure, meant to be drunk fast while standing at a counter. And by mixing it with foamed or heated milk, they found you could make a massive range of drinks. Drinks that, ironically, became much more popular in the rest of the world, while most Italians still prefer their espresso black. And that's pretty much how we got here. From a mysterious plant that made goats dance to a worldwide industry. But what's most amazing about coffee is in some ways how little it's changed. Though the method of drinking it has evolved over time, we still use it to stay up late or get up early. You'll still see coffee houses cluttered around universities and can walk into one anywhere in the world and find creative or business minds at work on laptops or in meetings. Heck, that's how Rob wrote these episodes. A flat white in hand, sipping history. Cheers to that. But of course, coffee's not the only thing that shaped our past. All of history is a web of cultures influencing each other.
Oh, it's sponsor and ad time. Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, this was I really loved this series. Though it was only 2 episodes, I really loved it and enjoyed it. They should make more history series on stuff like this. Like I don't mind when they do like a series on famous historical people or like famous wars and conflicts, but wars can't really relate to the common average citizen. Like stuff like this, the history of coffee is much more interesting for me than stuff like the 7 Years' War or the American Revolution. So yeah, I don't really have anything else much to say really. So yeah, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe. Check out my Facebook page. The link is in the description. So will the link to this video by Extra Credits. Go check them out. They make great content. Oh, and one more question before I press the stop recording button. Do you prefer your coffee with A, black, B, milk and sugar, C, cream and sugar, D, sugar only, F, creamer only, and you know what? You get what I'm trying to ask you. Just comment down below how you like your coffee. For me, I like my coffee with milk, with just like a teaspoon of milk and half a teaspoon of sugar. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!